Hello everybody, welcome to Miss Duckworth's classroom. This is a lesson on how to analyse a literature extract for George Orwell's 1984, and this is for the CIE 0475 Literature Paper 1. This is just a quick overview of this particular question. As you're probably aware, it goes with your paper 1 and it's your prose section. You will have a choice of 2 questions. You have a choice of your extract or your full novel question. Either way, you've got 45 minutes for this particular section of the exam. So it's really important that you do use your time wisely. You spend time reading the extract, annotating the extract, planning up your answer, writing your answer, and then making sure you give yourself a few minutes at the end just to check your answer. Definitely would be much easier for you if you practice this method repeatedly beforehand, just so that you get used to how you need to respond and how you do so in time conditions. So in today's lesson, I'm going to talk you through how you approach the extract question, how you approach the extract itself, how you select your examples, how you respond to the question, and how you begin to formulate your plan. Okay, so your first question is probably going to be, how am I supposed to answer this question? It can be a little bit daunting because you're given an extract and you must respond to this extract in 45 minutes. And it may seem like that's not a lot of time. But there are specific things that the examiner is looking for in this paper. And I'm just going to go through those with you in the hope that it helps you to understand exactly what it is you have to pull out of the extract and what your answer should look like. So the assessment objectives here are AO1, AO2, AO3 and AO4. AO1 and AO2 are really all about showing the examiner that you've got a good understanding of the extract, of who is involved, what's happening, why this sixth section is so significant to the story, where it is, for example, any themes that you may see. You also have to make a lot of reference to the text, obviously, because you have the extract in front of you. You must be using quotations. If you were to choose the full novel question, that's very, very different. You're allowed to paraphrase for that particular question, but as you have the extract in front of you, you are expected to select relevant quotations and then respond to them. You must have an understanding of the deeper meanings, so this is where you're required to infer and interpret meaning and really to analyse on a deeper level. You should also be able to comment on authorial intention, authorial choices, the methods, everything in terms of what the author was trying to achieve and how they tried to achieve this, and then what the effect is on the reader. Relevant contextual information. This is not where you just bolt on contextual information at the end of a paragraph, for example, where you may say, this is about totalitarianism. It has to be embedded within your paragraphs. It has to really be a significant part of your answer. So use your context to interpret meaning and to help you with your analysis. AO3, this is where you show that you can demonstrate a good understanding of how everything in the extract is presented to you. So as you go through the extract and you select what's interesting and what you want to comment on, you must always be thinking, how is this presented to me? So this is where you're thinking, what do I see, but how? How do I see it? How is it presented to me? How do I understand this? And this is where you can comment on language, structure and form. So do make sure that you're able to talk about the many different elements of a novel. You must also show that you know why it's presented in this way. And this does link back to the author intention up here. What is the author trying to show you? How do they want you to feel? What do they want you to understand? And finally, we have AO4, which is all about how you present your ideas. So whereas AO1, 2 and 3 are about how you interact with the extract, what you pull out, what you say about it, AO4 is really about how you say it. This is to do with how you construct your answer, how you organise your ideas, and how you really express yourself. It's also where you show that you've developed a personal response. So the examiner wants to see that you've read the extract and that you've got a response, that you've got clear ideas that you want to express. Okay, so this is an example of the extract that I'm going to be looking at today. Your extract does come with a question. This question guides you. So the question today is, how does Orwell make this such a revealing moment in the novel? All right, the first thing that I'm going to do is talk you through the steps. Everything that I do has steps in there, and I think that steps massively help you in terms of organising your time, but also making sure that you kind of get everything into your answer that you need. So I'm just going to go through the first 2 steps. There are obviously more, but I will go through them in a step-by-step way. So step 1 is to read the question and deconstruct it. Deconstruct means to pull it apart, to really understand what you're being asked to do, and to look at the language that's used. So highlight the key words, think about what they mean, think about what your focus is, and you could even write these on the top of the extract just to kind of keep you focused as you go through it. So if we look at the question, how does Orwell make this such a revealing moment in the novel? And really the key word that stands out here is revealing. They will use a lot of words like revealing, significant, important, and really they're all very, very similar in that they're asking you to pull out anything really that's interesting. Just think to yourself, what does the word revealing mean? What does it mean to reveal something? And that will help you to then pick out everything that you think is revealed to you or shown to you in the novel, in the extract, sorry. Step 2 is this is where you read the extract. So once you're happy that you understand what the question is asking, and if you don't understand any of the language, just try and use various other words, slot them in, and see if it still makes sense to you. And that might help you to kind of understand what it is you're being asked to do. So read the extract, think to yourself whereabouts in the novel it's from, really kind of put it in the placement of the novel. Really think about where it is, what section is it from, can you figure out whereabouts in that section it is, what key events have happened before or after, and why is this particular part important to the story, the novel as a whole. So think about why it's significant, where it is, what the mood is, what the themes are, and what Orwell is really trying to show you with that extract and why. The question can sometimes give you a clue, so you may be given something a little bit more specific than a word like revealing or engaging or interesting, and if it is more specific, then that really gives you a clear focus. Definitely give yourself time to brainstorm all of these different ideas, and what I'm going to suggest to you and show you in this lesson is how you can look at the extract and then you can just make notes on all of these different questions, so you can kind of have a good idea of what you may want to say before you really plan out your answer. Okay, so in terms of the extract, these are my notes. So I've gone through the significance of the extract, and I think it's significant because it expresses ideas about language, it expresses ideas on the mutability of history, shows the control of the party and the propaganda wielded by the party, and it also focuses on truth. And what you will notice is that a lot of these are to do with the themes of the novel. So as you've in your lesson gone through the different themes and analysed the themes and interpreted the themes, these should be at the forefront of your mind, and you will be able to spot the themes in the extract, and that helps you to understand the significance, why it's important, why it's been selected. Then I've considered here what I already know. I already know that this is coming from a totalitarian state. I know that Winston is rebellious. He does rebel at the very beginning. He has a diary. I also know that Winston does question the truth at various points in this novel. I know the party control absolutely everything in terms of what you say, what you do, and even what you think. I know that Winston works for the records department, and I also know that independent thought is not allowed. All of these things will help me to interpret the meaning, which is where you get your marks for the different assessment objectives. So I've gone through step 2. I've read it, and then I've made some notes on where it is, what is happening. Now, if you do want to read through the extract yourself, and I do strongly suggest that you do that before I continue any further with the lesson, please do just pause the video and rewind it slightly and read the extract in full. Okay, so moving on with the steps. Here we have steps 3, 4, 5 and 6, and this takes you right up until you have to write up your answer. So step 3 is once you have read the extract and you've made your little notes at the top to kind of help you, you go back through and you highlight anything that is relevant to the question. Highlight anything that stands out for you. In this particular example, it's all about what is revealed to you. So think about what Winston is revealing to you, what Orwell is revealing to you, what Orwell is showing you. And it doesn't matter how much you highlight here, because this is where you go back through and you start to just decide what could I possibly use as my evidence and what could I use to develop my own personal response. Once you've done that, you can go back and have a look at what you've highlighted. Think about what you can say about your examples. Think about what they show. There may be patterns you can comment on. So you may say, okay, well, actually, the word forgery is repeated several times. So I think I'm going to develop that into a point. And you may be able to link quotations together. If you can't, don't worry. But this is where you decide on your final choices, and you can still change this later on, but you want to narrow it down a little bit. So you couldn't possibly talk about 10 different pieces of examples, but you may be able to talk about 5. So this is where you go back through and you think, oh, I don't actually know what I would say about that, so I'm not going to keep that. Oh, but I really like that. I think I could talk about this. It's a simile, or it's a metaphor, it's a short sentence. So decide what you know you will be able to talk about in detail. And if you can, as you go, try and analyse them. So try and give yourself some time to just make a few notes on your paper. Analyse in terms of maybe identifying techniques, discussing the language choice, making little notes in terms of the question, saying what you think is revealed, even writing down themes next to it. These notes will definitely help you when you start to come to write up your full answer. This is where you eliminate any of your choices. Either you may go back and think, oh, actually, I don't know why I chose that, that's irrelevant. Or you may decide that you can't really say anything about it. Once you've done all of that, then you can start to look at what you've highlighted, annotated, and then you can make your plan. On the right here, you can see I've given you some ideas of what you could possibly look out for. I know from my own experience in my classes, pupils always say, well, I don't know what to pick, I don't know what's important, I don't know what I could put in an essay. And so I developed this list that you can go through. Obviously, you do not have to talk about everything, but it just gives you a little bit of an idea of what to pick if you're looking at the extract and your mind has gone blank. So I'm not going to read through it right now, but you can pause the lesson and you can either make notes of this or just go through and make sure you understand what all those are. And of course, don't forget that you can use your list to help you here. So the list that you made at the beginning, as you're going through your extracts and you're trying to position it within the novel, don't forget that a lot of this can help you in terms of deciding which quotations you want to keep and also what you want to put on your plan. Okay, so I'll just talk you through the different steps that I have explained to you and that I've gone through myself. So I've read the extract. These are the notes that I made from earlier on, and I've then gone back and I've highlighted anything that I think is significant. And you'll notice here that I've highlighted not everything. I've just highlighted anything where I think something interesting is being shown to me. And this links back to what is revealing about this particular extract. But this is the process that you use for every extract, no matter what the question is. Pick out elements of the extract where you're really being shown something interesting and important. Obviously, make sure it's relevant to the question. So if you're asked about character, must link to that in some way. But here I've just gone through and thought, right, okay, which are the best bits of this extract? At the moment, I'm not worried about whether I can talk about them or not. I'm just going through with my highlighter. So these are the elements that I've decided are interesting. This process of continuous alteration was applied not only to newspapers, but to books, periodicals, pamphlets, posters, leaflets, films, soundtracks, cartoons, and photographs. Now, I like that because it's an extremely long list. And whenever there's a technique, you've always got to ask yourself why. Especially with something like that, I'm asking myself, why has Orwell created such a long list there? And obviously that's to tell us something about the state that he's living in. It's telling us something about this process that the state go through in terms of altering history. So I can link it already to some things that I know down here in terms of the party controlling everything. I also like this phrase, they might conceivably hold any political or ideological significance. So I like this idea as it's to do with the party again, and it's to do with the totalitarian state. And then I also have this, the past was brought up to date, which is a bit of a paradox. So I like that idea. I think maybe I'll be able to comment on that in terms of the past being brought up to date when it's clearly in the past. It really shows how the party is manipulating the past. And then I've picked here, all history was a palimpsest. Again, really nice phrase there. The fact that this metaphor is being used, and if you've gone through a palimpsest, if you've gone through that particular metaphor in your lesson and you've looked at what it means, then it's really something that you could analyse in terms of something being written down and then rewritten and then you have lots of different versions over the top. So I do like that phrase. There wasn't much here that I felt that I could really talk about, so I went right down here. No other copy existed to contradict it. Again, I think that shows power, it shows control. Books were also recalled and rewritten again and again, and this repetition of again kind of shows us it's a continuous process, then it gives you the idea that it's never ending. And then at the bottom here, always the reference was to slips, errors, misprints or misquotations, and I thought that the use of language here was interesting. So if you notice, a lot of the examples here that I'm picking, they're all here somewhere. So in terms of imagery, or in terms of which words are standing out here, so definitely slips, errors, misprints. It's a list, but it's also the language that is used to refer to what they're doing here. The language that they're using to refer to something that they must change. It's a slip, it's an error, it's a misquotation. These are the excuses that are given for why they are changing history, why they're rewriting history. And this is just the end of the extract. I have this idea of the word forgery again. To me, that word stands out, so I definitely want to maybe comment on that. It was merely the substitution of one piece of nonsense for another. Now, this stands out a lot because I think that the word nonsense really shows me something about Winston, the fact that he's used that word. And already I'm going back here to what I already know. I know that Winston rebels. I know that Winston questions the truth. So it makes sense that Winston would refer to it as nonsense. Statistics were just as much a fantasy in their original version as in their rectified version. That's very interesting if you think about what we know about statistics and facts and how much we trust them, and the fact that actually their meaning has been completely inverted here. They're no longer factual things that we use as a basis for a lot of our ideas, but actually it's a fantasy. And it's a fantasy whether it's in the original version or the rectified version. It will always be a fantasy. And here we have Winston, however, in rewriting the forecast. So again, this idea of rewriting the forecast. How can you rewrite a forecast? A forecast appears before something has happened. It's like a prediction. So again, very paradoxical language here that's used by Orwell. And then at the end of the extract, everything faded away into a shadow world in which finally even the date of the year had become uncertain. Again, imagery used here. I like the idea of a shadow world. It really tells us something about the totalitarian state. But again, this idea of everything has become uncertain really shows us something about the society that Winston is living in. So if you just know that everything that I've picked, I know why I've picked it. There's something I could say about it. But now I need to go back through and decide on which I think the best examples are. There is far too much there for me to talk about in one essay, particularly considering I probably will only have about 30 minutes to write up that essay. So now I've got to go back and I want to start making my final choices. So you want to go back and think about which examples help you to answer the question. It may be that you've highlighted some examples which you now think, actually that's completely irrelevant. It's got nothing to do with the question. Which ones are interesting enough for you to comment on? Note how whenever I noticed a technique, I was saying it out loud. I was saying it to you. If I was in an exam situation, I'd be writing it down. That's what makes it interesting. And you want to now think, okay, which examples are now of no use? Once you've made your decisions and you've gone back and you've decided on what you're going to keep and what maybe is not so relevant anymore, you think about what you can say about the examples. Now, I was talking you through as I did that, so those would be my notes. Everything I said verbally, those would be the notes that I would just jot down on the paper. This will definitely help you here with your main point in your topic sentence. And again, a lot of worries that I get from pupils is I don't know how to start. I don't know how to start my points. I don't know how to start my sentences. I don't know how to get my quotation into my essay. So the notes that you make around your quotations, around your evidence, they can actually be rephrased as a point or a topic sentence. So these notes really do help you. Okay, so here are just some of the ones that I decided to cut. So you can see I've got 3 here that I've decided to cut. And it's purely because I feel that there's more I can talk about in the metaphor here, in the list over here, and the ideas that are expressed on here. I think there's more I can talk about here than these 3 examples here. So that's why I decided to cut those. On this slide, I decided there's only one that I would maybe cut because I like these much more. There's more I can say about the ideas that I have here. And again, it will be different for everybody. You will engage with your examples in some way and on some level. So I just want you to see that you can go back through and then just cross out the ones that you don't need, or tick the ones that you really, really like, and maybe kind of have a hierarchy of your best ideas. And if you have time, you can include more. If you don't, at least you know that you managed to get your best ones in your essay first of all. Okay, so once you've gone through the extract, you've highlighted, you've annotated, hopefully, you've picked the examples that you want, then you can start to think about your plan. And your plan is where you think, right, what did I see in that extract? What was I shown? What was revealed to me? And if you can then just paraphrase those things, that's then what your plan is. Obviously, you don't want to lead with a quotation. You want to kind of introduce a quotation, introduce an idea. Your quotation is your evidence. It's not your beginning sentence. And this is where your points come in. And you'll notice that actually a lot of the points here, they were things that I said to you as I was going through the extract, as I was talking you through my points. These were ideas that came out in response to what I was seeing. And that's why annotation is so important here, because all I really did was look at what I would have written for each of those examples, my annotations, and then just formulate them into points. Now I have 7 here. You obviously cannot talk about 7 in around 35 minutes. But what I tell my pupils to do, what I would prefer to do, is to write all my ideas down and then look at them and then decide which ones I like, which ones I've got the best evidence for. And again, you can just start to cross out the ones that you don't want. So this is my initial plan. So some of the points that I could make in this extract, what's revealed to us is the power and control of Big Brother. What is revealed to us is how easily history can be rewritten. And if you notice, I'm using the keywords from the question here to rephrase my points. And you can use the keyword again and again. You can use synonyms for the keyword just so you don't find yourself repeating yourself, but do always make sure that what you're saying is relevant. I could talk about how the unreliability of information is shown to us. I could talk about how deceit is presented here in this section. You could also talk about Winston's acceptance of this situation. This is not somewhere where he's really railing against the party, where he shows his disgust or his anger. What he's actually doing is he's just explaining it to you in quite a matter-of-fact way. I could also talk about the propaganda used by the party and how that's presented, and could also talk about the uncertainty of information, the uncertainty of truth and fact, and the uncertainty of the information that's presented in the extract. So here I have 7 different points that I could mention, and I will go through and decide which ones I think are the strongest point. So now you have what you want to say about what is revealed in the extract. You have evidence. You have several different pieces of evidence that you should have decided on. You should have made notes on techniques that you can comment on, so name them. Do say what is shown to you, how it is shown, and then notes on your analysis. You also have a plan. You have several ideas that you can use. You can now use all of this to write up your answer in full. So one way of remembering all the different stages that we went through for this extract question is also to think about DREAM. And it's a nice acronym that kind of helps you to remember all the different stages. So we have deconstruct the question, we have read, understand and highlight the extract, we have analyse your choices, eliminate irrelevant or weak choices, and then finally make a plan. So thank you very much for taking part in this lesson. Please do look out for the next one, which is where I show you how to really define your plan, to make it a little bit shorter, to make sure it's a powerful plan, and then how to write up your answer. Thank you very much. Goodbye.